Michael, overall thoughts on the moderators, the candidates, the zeitgeist, the gestalt, whatever you'd like to address.
Why did you make me watch this? What a nightmare that was.
Stipulated in your contract.
It's in my contract to watch it. I wouldn't have watched it otherwise. Look, I think that you're right, as you said up top, that moderating a debate like this is difficult. And I want to give the moderators a wider berth than I am sort of, my instinct says. They kept on breaking up the flow and it was driving me crazy. I was like walking in circles, waiting for this thing to get back to, an interesting debate, which it wasn't in any ways, but to the previous guest's point, Cuomo just was flabby and not particularly good. Mamdani. So it's a hard look. You have to say that it's a hard thing to debate a socialist, isn't it? Because they just have to promise that they will give you all these things, and the details are not something that are ever going to be elucidated in a debate. At one point, he did say, and it's an amazing thing to me, well, I'll just raise taxes. They'll just raise taxes, and they'll take care of everything. The free buses, and, we'll freeze rent. This stuff is pie-in-the-sky stuff that every economist knows is pie-in-the-sky nonsense. So it's frustrating to watch that, and frustrating to watch somebody who's been in the political scene for as long as Cuomo has in his mother's milk and just cannot respond to this stuff. And you realize why he couldn't win the Democratic primary. But I mean, there's all of these things when, Mamdani is saying, I was the first to call for a ceasefire. That is not a good thing. It's not a good thing to say in October of 2023, I was calling for a ceasefire. That's, in the fact that when he was on Fox, watching Martha McCallum, who did, by the way, an excellent job, speaking of beating up on the moderators. She was fantastic and pressing him on this stuff. And he was so bad. I couldn't believe how unprepared he was for these questions when he starts answering a different question. I mean, that's always what you're media trained to do. If somebody asks you on TV to answer a question, you say, well, that's a pretty good question, and you answer a different question. He was not very skilled at that, but tonight, Cuomo kind of bombed, and someone had previously pointed out that Curtis Sliwa was kind of ignoring Mamdani, so much so in his tweet that I just saw. And I'm kind of a huge Curtis Sliwa fan because he's just such a phenomenal New York figure and has been in the sort of New York Post, particularly for years. But he tweeted, I was the clear winner tonight. Cuomo bombed it. Mamdani's not even mentioned in his tweet. And when you compare the two, I think that's probably right. But overall, don't think the needle was moved very much. And you can't let a guy just get away with the things that Mamdani says. Saying, well, I never said defund the police. I can show you 35,000 tweets of you saying the exact thing, and then saying, well, 2020 was a long time ago for, throwing people back into the old folks' homes for their imminent deaths. And then, when you see that Mamdani's tweeting stuff about the NYPD last year, this recently. Yeah. And I think my namesake, the better Moynihan, pointed this out. But the trail is very, very recent, and they should just be hammering him on this stuff. And it just was not effective. And he seemed, the smile drove me crazy, though. Can I say that? Is that too facile?
We all agree. I've got a box of rice checks that's from 2020, so
it's
not that long ago. Can we get a Moynihan to Moynihan question just for the sake
Moynihan
of
on Moynihan.
Yeah.
No relation that we know of. Yeah, I thought it was so striking that I feel like all we've heard from Mamdani is Palestinian genocide and anti-Israel and blah, blah, blah. And then yesterday, for the first time, when he's asked about the ceasefire, I don't want to comment about this. I just want to focus on New York.
Yeah.
When did that change? As soon as the ceasefire was released?
He
really?
wants to ban guns in America, but he has no opinion on Hamas disarming. So some people can have guns, but as long as they're not in New York. But no, he's done that a few times. And, then he's, 2 days ago, he was running in the Gaza 5K or something to raise money for Gaza, his wife. And look, I don't like to pin the wife's political opinions on him, but is posting, memorializing this Hamas operative known as Mr. Fafo, for people who've been following this know who he is, who was killed by other Palestinians, by the way, after the ceasefire. And this is the kind of waters that they swim in. And to answer those pretty basic questions where you talk about it endlessly and think it's the most important issue in the world until you don't. And his jaw is open on that. And I think that he should have been hammered a lot more on it.
They say that something that's easy is like a walk in the park. Well, easier than a walk in the park, hit the subscribe button, be part of the two-way community, never miss an episode, be part of our conversations. Thank you for your service to America. And don't forget, you can now listen to the Morning Meeting and Two-Way Tonight on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.